You're on mute.
Sorry,
Brilliant.
is that better? Okay.
Yeah,
We had some
brilliant.
sound interference there, so hopefully that's now been resolved. So listen, a very, very warm welcome to everybody for what is our logistics career chat this morning. We've been running quite a few of these and they seem to be warmly received. And our candidates are getting an awful lot from them. So we will continue to do these. So if you have any requests or preference for future topics, then just please let Caroline know. Okay, we have got two fantastic speakers today, which we are delighted to bring forward to you. So we have Dewey du Plessis, so we're just establishing the pronunciation of the surname there, Assistant Logistics Manager from FHK for Ferrovie BAM, Royal Marine with a 12-year career with them. He moved to Civvy Street for a few years in a PM role for a digital company, but he can talk about that through his journey. And we are delighted to have Phil Herbert, our logistics manager, so with a very strong 16-year career in the British Army. So Phil will guide you through his career, his transition, and what he's currently doing now. Again, as Caroline says, use the chat box for questions and we'll come to them at the end. So I'll pass over to our first speaker, Dewey, if you're there.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'll get a presentation up and tell you a little bit more about myself as such. So my name's Dewey du Plessis. I spent, at the moment I'm a assistant logistics manager for EKFB, and that stands for FHK Ferrovie BAM. A little bit about myself. I spent 12 years in the Marines, came up to that halfway point and had to make a decision whether to stay or go. Made that decision to go and had a really good career. Spent, like I say, 12 years with deployments and exercises all over the world. One highlight's been a year long on a tropical ocean in the Indian Ocean, which was great. And then finally finished my career up in a beautiful mountainous Scotland. So came up to that transition point, thought I sort of had it figured out, did a degree before I left, and time just sort of caught up with me. And instead of listening to my heart, going down the construction industry like I wanted to, I went down the IT industry. Good career and all, but it's just something not for myself. So did that for 2 years, working as a digital project manager, and then luckily through LinkedIn came upon Buildforce, where I had a chat with Caroline through LinkedIn, then joined one of the inside days down at Cosford and got the ball rolling from there. The Buildforce team quickly got things, in play, and I got put in contact with various different people from the construction industry itself. I had a good few chats with people from Wilson James, guys from Balfour Beatty working on various interesting projects, and then finally got put in contact with a guy from a logistics manager from FHK, and went down there to meet up with him in Birmingham, had a chat with him, showed me around what people are doing and what's actually available. The thing that sort of highlighted it all for me, talking to all these different people with different experiences within the actual construction industry, it just started highlighting, points that I've got a skill set that I can actually bring to this thing with me. Being from no construction industry myself, there's actually things that I can do, and it's sort of a broad, wide skill set across the military. Everyone's actually really, really good at this, even though we don't always, put it out there. So adaptable. Did realize that we're always very adaptable within the military, bouncing from one job to another. You're always managing to change things and go from there. I never thought about the planning and logistics side of construction, but everything we do is in the military is revolving around logistics, either moving yourself, or stuff that you need to move from A to B. It just gets bigger as the operations get bigger, and constantly working with different teams, whether it's sections, troops, companies, wider brigades. You're always working with different people, and you adapt so quickly and just get on with what you need to do. And timekeeping speaks for itself. we're actually really, really good at it. And it just goes to show once you start working in a civilian environment, timekeeping it's really good. People appreciate that thing. And it comes naturally for us. So decided to leave. Luckily, got a job with FH for Oviel Dam. Started working on the HS2 project, which is really good. And even that started bringing up a lot of similarities on what I used to do to what I'm doing now. Either moving ammunition from A to B or moving tons and tons of steel from A to B. It's still the same thing. Still needs to be planned. Still needs to be, it still needs to get there. Moving people A to B, they still need to be there with the right PPE, right equipment, right time. And same with food, water, welfare, all that sort of things. It's the same environment. It's the same stuff. It's actually, there's no difference between the two, whether it's military or civilian work environment. So now on the HS2 project, we're building sort of compounds along our 80-kilometer stretch where we'll be working out of, and the construction teams will sort of push their jobs from there. So my job is to coordinate and run one of these compounds as one of the assistant logistics managers. And my responsibilities on a day-to-day on this project is to act sort of as a link in between the operational support team that plan all this stuff, that does all the procurement side of things, that makes sure all the processes and procedures are in place, and then the construction team that just wants to dig the hole and build the bridge. So on that link in between to make sure everyone has got what they need and everyone's aware of each other's needs. It's interesting, it's varied, it's a good job. It keeps me busy. So for my compounds that I'm building or helping to plan, we have to think of a lot of the traffic and security, harpers back to the military, especially with this HS2 project, bit of a high profile thing. There might be a few people that doesn't really agree with it. So security's got to be very well thought of. It's got to be very well planned. How are we going to get our traffic in there? There's certain roads that we can't use due to the size of the vehicles. And because where we are so remote, we have to get our workforce there. Back to my military thing, you need to get your workforce there on time, at the right place, at the right time. And it takes a lot of planning to do that sort of stuff. Then materials, obviously it's going to use tons and tons of aggregates, steel, concrete, you name it. All these things have to be stored somewhere. You can't just dump it by the side of the road. It needs to be thought out. We need to be liaised with the construction teams. So I do a lot of that liaising back and forth with our construction teams, and then our operational support side on where they're going to store all that. And then along this stretch, as we move on, everyone wants a warm, dry place to eat. So we need to think of welfare, kitchens, toilets, sort of stuff that we need to move along the road. We need to think of people maintaining those things. Who's going to sort it? Who's going to fix it? Who's going to move it along the trace? So it's a lot of planning and making sure it's all there, ready to go. That's my job in a very quick nutshell. It's a few other little things, but that's the crux of it. I have to think back to myself when I left the military, coming up to that point. It's about 5 recommendations that I would give to anyone and that I've given to my friends that's thinking of coming out. And one of the most important ones, our work experience. I can't stress that enough. And with Build Force, they're in such a good position to be able to slot you into a bit of a work experience time gap especially with these big companies. That's why I didn't go down the construction route at first, because you can't exactly knock on the door of Kia and say, well, I'm here for 2 weeks, can I have a bit of work experience? It's very hard to get your foot in that door. But Build Force is good at liaising with people within the industry, and it can just get you that 2 week summer break, and you can get to know people. Don't be afraid to try something new. For myself, I didn't think of the logistics side within construction, but it's so vast and so widely spread out that the construction industry isn't just building stuff. So think of trying something new within the construction industry. It's the options are there, they're available. And adapt your CV and your expectations. I left the CTP workshop. They're good and everything, but I left with the one CV that I had knocked up and thought this will fit into all holes where I'm going to try and shove this square peg into. It didn't work. You need to adapt it. You need to change it for the job, for the company. And for myself, I left the military to be more at home, but now I'm actually doing a bit more traveling as well, which I don't mind. It's I'm home on weekends, I'm home in the evening, so it's just got to slightly adapt them expectations. And don't undersell yourself. We are very good in the military at understating how good we are and what we actually can bring to the party. Sell yourself, oversell yourself, even if you feel a bit embarrassed. You got to look after yourself at the end of the day. And the work environment that you want to work in, that's an important lesson that I've learned now that I've left. I knew I don't want to crawl around on my hands and knees anymore, but neither did I want to sit in an office 24/7. The job that I'm doing now allows me to have that office time planning things that I need to get on with. And then when I've had enough, I can stick my head out of the door and go and have a look to see what's going on. So it gives you that bit of a two-way experience on what you want to think of the environment that you want to be working in. So that's my career in the military, what I'm doing now. And I'll take a quick minute just to tell you of the opportunities and sort of stuff that we've got available at FH Kiev Rovial BAM. So just in my immediate team, 5 out of our 8 senior management in our operational support are ex-forces. So it's an environment that you quickly slot in, you get on with quite quick. The rank is used as a springboard. It's not a benchmark. We've got sergeants working at the same level as captains and majors, and vice versa down the chain, up and down the chain. It doesn't get used as a benchmark. In my immediate team, there's 9 ex-forces, all from various different backgrounds, different experiences, which brings a good atmosphere to the team, and you work a lot easier with people like that. By the end of the year, EKFB will need to fill 600 plus positions. So there's a lot of work coming up, especially on this HS2 project. And, that's not limited to health and safety, engineering, logistics, procurement, administration, comms, the list goes on. There's loads and loads of opportunities. Our recruitment site works through either LinkedIn or BuildForce, especially for ex-forces. So I'd say if you register your interest for EKFB with Angela or and BuildForce, they can pass that on to our recruitment teams and they'll be aware of you. If you want to go down a different route, you can look on our site. We've got our own career site available now that's up and live running. So it's that in the blue there, ekfb.com. Click on there, click on the careers, brings you onto this page. So you register.
Oh, Julie, sorry, your presentation isn't showing. I wasn't sure that you didn't realise.
Pardon?
Your presentation isn't showing. So if you're taking them through, no. Do you want to just try it again?
Oh yeah, sorry. I've just been talking all the while.
Yeah, I thought you'd just given up on the presentation. Sorry.
Oh,
it's
no.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's just taking them through bits. So I thought it might be a good idea to just bring it up now.
Yeah. Sorry about that, people.
Phil, can you switch your camera off, please?
Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. We can, and on it now. Just make it a screen.
Yeah, there we go.
Fantastic, Jerry. Apologies for that.
No, that's all right. So we spoke about that. Yeah, recruitment. So through LinkedIn or BuildForce. So up at the top there, you can register at ekfb.com. On the career side there, just click on the careers. Register up at the top there. And click on the vacancies just for, I took this slide yesterday. So yesterday, 22 vacancies went live. That's across the whole business. So you can register on there, see what's available. So what that allows you to do, allows you to register for specific jobs, your interest in specific jobs. You can put your CV on there, and you can also put your availability date. So whether you're still in the military, at least that'll come up, and you can see when you want to get that job. And you'd be able to get alerts as well, because they put the jobs out there, but they might not have gone live. So when that job recruitment goes live, you'll get an alert to say, well, whatever job you want, it's gone live. Register your interest, put your CV into that specific job, and you automatically get added to the EKFB talent pool, which allows our recruitment team to view all interested persons that want a job for EKFB. So before they start going out to the wider recruitment platforms that's out there nowadays, they'll look at what they've got available right there and then and go along that way. So yeah, sorry my presentation didn't work. Put a lot of effort into that.
Oh, Dewey, I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much, everyone. That's all right. And yeah,
it was great.
Okay, Dewey, listen, thank you for that. There was an awful lot of key information in your presentation. You touched on some brilliant points. And I thought your demonstration of how to apply was actually really effective at the end there. So thank you, because it's about kind of supporting and guiding our audience. And I thought that was really, really good. I've noted a few of my own questions, and we've got a few that have come in as well. So we'll come back to you. But in the meantime, we'll pass over to Phil Herbert.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, all. I'm going to look at this slightly differently. A hard act to follow, though, I concede. I'm going to give you a quick background on myself. I won't bore you too much on that. And then the next thing, I think what is significantly important is I'm going to look at the challenges and advice of making that transition out of the forces into the civilian environment. And hopefully I've got a bit of advice there and a few areas where I might have got it right or where I got it wrong. Then I'm going to unashamedly plug Billforce for their support to me. And then I'm going to touch generally on the link or similarities between construction or construction logistics and logistics support in the forces. So myself, I was in the British Army for 22 years, Royal Logistic Corps. Started off as a young platoon commander, fresh out of Sandhurst, and finished off as a commanding officer, both working overseas and in the UK and in Europe. My pathway out of the military was definitely not what I expected, to be honest. I networked a lot, what I will come back to. And eventually I fell across a chap who said to me, he said, I've got some construction logistic consultancy jobs coming up, set up your own private company. And I got the train out of London. I thought it was another dead end avenue I'd gone down. But lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, he was in touch. And that set my platform, working through my own limited company as a logistic consultant on some quite significant projects, such as London City Airport, across in Dublin, and up at Sellafield nuclear power station. Mainly that was focused on writing strategy of how the logistics was going to support some quite sizable projects. Since that, I've also done more permanent logistic management role, both in the UK and in the Middle East. I'll move now onto my thoughts on transition. And I guess the one I struggled most with, and I think this should echo across all listening, is that regarding selfless commitment. It's drummed into you throughout the military, one of the core values and standards about selfless commitment to the people who serve underneath you, or you've got the pleasure and privilege to command. And I would argue that as soon as you decide, or that sort of thought comes in your mind that you're going to leave the forces, you've got to switch. You've now got to become selfish to your own journey that you're about to embark on. And you've really got to sort of detach yourself as best and quickly as you can from the military. Also a point there is when that seed enters your mind about leaving the forces. Now, the seed entered my mind probably about 3 to 4 years before I finally pressed the button, or the 7 clicks to freedom. And I guess I just wasn't brave enough, really. And I'd probably argue that I stayed in 2-3 years longer than I should have done, to be honest. So I guess my sort of advice there is, once that seed's in your mind, I don't think it's going to go. And I think you've pretty much made your decision. And I think it's one then is to be brave enough to back yourself and dive into the outside world. Also, I think as well that the moving out the forces is a truly liberating experience. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that you've now truly got a choice. Rather than filling in a posting preference performer every 2 to 3 years or maybe longer, where the needs of the military come first and the needs of the family come a close second, apparently. It is, you've now got an actual choice where you're physically going to go, where your career is going to take you. And I don't say that lightly. And I'll give you a quick, put that in context, if I may. I went down the hiring process for Amazon for a senior logistic manager. Went down to their assessment centre after various rounds of telephone interviews and assessments. Had several interviews on that day, four interviews, and had a look around their warehouse. Now, I'm not being derogatory to Amazon in any way, but as I left and was driving home, something just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel the place for me to work. And I spoke to the wife, who generally speaks a sense in my household, regarding this. And she said, well, just don't pursue it, Phil. And it may sound a really simple thing, but there was a lighthouse moment for me, because I suddenly realised that rather than someone saying, right, you're going to get posted to Germany, you're going to do this job, and you moan and whinge about it and then just crack on and do it because you've got no other option. The lighthouse moment came on as I turned around and said, well, no, that's absolutely fine, and I won't pursue it with Amazon. Thankfully, they didn't want to pursue it with me either. Who could blame them? So that's what I mean about it being a liberating experience. The next point I'd like to cover is one about seizing the opportunity. And an opportunity may come along, but it might not quite fit into your timeline of how you're coming out of the forces and how you're looking to leave the forces and when. But I'd argue there, do not turn that opportunity off. If it is a right opportunity and it feels right, pursue it with vigour and speak to the military the day you will leave it and see if they will now consider early release. Because the last thing you want to do is look 2, 3, 4 months' time down the line and turn around and say, I wish I'd done that. So it sort of probably links into my first point about turning from the selfless commitment to the selfish. And therefore do everything you can to pursue that opportunity. The next point I talk about is resettlement leave. You get resettlement leave, you get your termination leave, and it's to use the lot, okay? There's far too many people in the forces who quite happily, through their selfless commitment, continue working till a couple of weeks out, and then suddenly they get ground rush where they haven't concentrated on sorting themselves out, their family out, and for that key transition they're about to go through. And I'd say it's a leadership challenge for those you're working for as well, because in my view, they should be wholly supporting you through this process, and therefore they should switch to supporting your transition out of the forces if they're worth their salt as in a leadership capacity. So it's quite hard to do. I mean, I was quite happily sat in my last job in the forces. And I was doing exactly the opposite of what I'm saying now. And I had a particularly good boss who popped up to see me and said, what are you doing in the office? He said, you know, time is marching on. I don't want to see you in. You've got a 2IC. They can quite happily take the reins. You now need to concentrate on your other life. Thankfully, he saw that and I didn't. So hopefully I'm imparting that advice on you because you own it ultimately, is to use all that resettlement leave and termination leave. The other bit of advice I've got is general, really, and really rip the sort of the rule book up here and don't look at specific jobs. You get a lot of people who come out of the military and say, right, I want to be a project manager, I want to be a logistic manager, and play into their strengths. But I'd argue that we've lived in a goldfish bowl for however long we've been in, and therefore you don't truly know what opportunities or jobs are out there. So I'd concentrate on sectors, construction being one, perhaps before the virus is retail maybe, the automotive industry, etc. But don't focus on specific jobs in there. And how do you do that is my next point really, is networking. I did no courses. I made a bold decision. Thought I'm going to do no resettlement courses at all. I'm going to purely focus all my attention on networking. And I guess a good way to start is linked to my other point about choosing the sector, is once you start using LinkedIn, you'll be surprised how many people, your ex-mates from the military, ex-mates from school even, who may be in the construction industry, is drop them a line and meet them for a coffee. Generally, the coffee's on you. But what I'd say is that I was massively heartened by not one person I approached said, no, we haven't got time for you, Phil. Everyone I approached had time and had different advice, but your network then slowly starts to grow. And I think networking is far more potent than applying for a job. And you're more likely, I think, although a bit nervous at times, to get a job through actual networking and meeting people. And a good place to start is LinkedIn. You know, your old friends are both military and even school, and see what they're doing now and get in touch. And you're surprised where that leads. I really mean that. My next point is probably slightly disingenuous to the HR community. For that, I apologise. But the key people that I think to start connecting with and networking with are hiring managers. Ultimately, they will get you the job, and it won't be through HR. HR may provide a window to get you into a hiring manager, but if you approach them directly, I would argue you've got more chance of getting employment that way. And the final point on my thoughts on transition really is help is always at hand. You know, through the networking, like I said before, massively surprised actually how helpful most people were. Obviously, everyone was. And also, it leads into my next sort of section, if I can call it that, on build force. There is help out there, and as I move on, I will use build force as a key one, to be honest, because I found the service that build force offered absolutely immaculate. Why? There was honest and invaluable advice and hooking you up to mentors within the construction business who I would have struggled to even connect with in the first place. And their introductions, they lead, I think, a far greater and a far more, or have a far greater impact than them actually applying for a job. And the empathy as well that Caroline and the build force to my situation was far greater than any sort of what I could term sort of recruitment agency. They understand your situation. They understand your strengths. They also understand very well what areas potentially you should be exploiting within the construction sector. And just simply through build force, it significantly expands your network. The final point I'd like to quickly talk about is my thoughts on construction and logistics. Most of it's been covered actually. However, construction, in my mind, is massively similar to the military. It's expeditionary in nature. It's like a military operation in the Middle East. Therefore it's not going to go on forever. A bit like a project, a building project, an infrastructure project, a road project. It will eventually end. Pretty much same. It requires resource. It can have the best plan in the world, but without being resourced correctly, the plan isn't going to work. It's as simple as that. Or the plan will get delayed, and the actual delivery of the construction will get delayed. Very similar to the military. Also similar to the military is the operations element. Pretty much, and apologies to the infantry and cavalry on the call, want everything yesterday and think logistics has got everything sat on a nice fluffy tree with labour, materials, plants hanging off it. So there's the same challenges there of short notice demands, exactly the same. And if you look at any construction project, I'd say it's not too dissimilar at all to say, if I say Camp Bastion, is you've got personnel deploying out on the ground to deliver an effect on the ground, whether it be a resupply, so patrol, a high-value target, etc. in the military, wearing the combat gear and PPE. Construction is exactly the same, except they're going out to deliver a different effect to build a road. There's a threat out there, working in live traffic, or a building site, working with plant. And the only real difference there is that the PPE is a different colour. And then they come back in at the end of the day. And to allow them to do that function on the ground, they need to be resourced exactly the same as the military. And as previously said, the only difference is, we're not dealing in bombs and bullets so much anymore, more in aggregates, machinery, etc. So the parallels to me are exactly the same, and the skill sets learned through the military or those in the logistics side of the military are exactly the same. The concepts and the principles remain the same. So never be fazed that you don't really understand what they're building or how they're building it, because I'd say most of the logisticians out there, it'd be like me turning around and supporting the Royal Marines and deciding that I've got a good mindset or understanding of how they're going to conduct a company or battle group attack. I haven't really, and I don't need to. But what I do need to know is what they need to conduct that battle group attack, company attack, etc., and how I resource it, the times they need, the duration, where they need it, etc. And therefore, construction is exactly the same. As long as you understand the logistics element, you will soon pick up the construction element and the ins and outs of it. But generally, throughout support to a construction project, you'll find the constraints and opportunities are very, very similar. That's all I've got. I'm conscious that I normally speak too long and talk over time, but I look forward to hosting any questions now. Thank you.
Phil, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I've got my own questions, which I'll come back to. So in terms of some of the questions that have come in, and we'll start with Dewey. So I don't know if you want to put your screen on and your mute off. So there was a question that was asked by Phil Bradley in terms of the qualifications required to work in construction logistics. Your advice, Dewey, was that the employer provides those. Could you just talk through just what training you were given initially at the start of your career? I know we've got Paul Bedford on the line as well. I don't know if he's got any advice that he can offer here. You just hover your mouse.
I'm here, Angela.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah, Paul Bedford. Hello, everyone. I'll let Dewey take the reins on this one, and I'll step in if I'll see what I should have given him and see what he actually received. Are you still there, Dewey?
Yeah, I'm back in now. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks, Dewey. You can put your screen on.
Hi, yeah, everything just
perfect.
Everything just died.
Okay, so I was asking there about, or it was a question from Phil Bradley about qualifications required to do the logistics role. And your advice was that your employer would upskill you or train you in the first instance. So what training did you receive once you started?
At the moment, well, like I said, I did a degree before I left the military in this in logistics management. I'm glad I did it, but whether that's sort of really helped me that much, I don't know. I probably would have done a few different things going along the health and safety route and things that can be applied there and then, ready to go. What I'm doing at the moment within the role that I'm doing now, seeing everything slightly bit of on hold. We're not doing that much at the moment, but I'm just upskilling in more within the business, like processes and procedures that needs to be used. So that sort of thing is going to be taught to you while you're there doing the job. The basic things that you can bring to the party is to turn up on time, ready to go, eager and to learn something new, because it is a vast new experience to learn and to do something different. So they'll teach you what you need to know as you're getting along. Just be willing to stick your hand up and say you don't know and learn how to do it.
Okay, and do you receive any health and safety training?
I haven't done yet because we're not operational. We're still in our planning phases, and with COVID putting things slightly on hold. Once that moves on, yes, I will have to have a element of health and safety training with what I'm doing, seeing that I'm managing a compound with loads of people, vehicles, machinery, chemicals and stuff all over the place. So yes, there will have to be some form of health and safety training revolved around my job role.
Okay, and I know that you're not long in the job role, but do you know what progression would look like for you? Do you know what the next step up would be?
Well, Paul Bedford's on the line, seeing that it's my line manager. I would like to say,
Okay,
well,
awesome.
you know, sky's the limit. But yes, you know, like I touched on within my brilliant presentation that didn't work. Our structure within EKFB on the operational support is very much set around a military sort of framework. We've got clear people above us, next to us, below us. So for me as an assistant logistics manager, preferably with, you know, in a year or two's time, I can move up to being the logistics manager within my area. What's good about the HS2 project and what we are working on, because it's so big and it's going to go on for so long, you know, fingers crossed one of them people above me would move on and I can jump in there. So yeah, the progression is there. There's loads of progression coming up.
Good. And Paul, I don't know if you're on the line there, but if there was somebody listening interested in a role in logistics, would health and safety training or any other courses help secure a role?
I think I stand by what Dewey said earlier on, in that logistics is logistics. Whether or not you're moving a tin of baked beans across the desert in Afghanistan, across Salisbury Plain training area, up and down the M1, or supporting the HS2 project, or the projects that Phil's working on, the principles are there, and that is what people are looking for. And everything else, which is specific qualifications related to the industry, can follow on from that. There'll be the standard qualifications of getting your CSCS card. There'll be induction training, which includes all of your health and safety. And there are opportunities to do things like your NEBOSH and all the other elements. But we have our own bespoke health and safety department, and as a joint venture with FARGE, with Kia, BAM, Ferrovial, and with the support of all of our subcontractors, we've got some global players who are supporting us on this. There's so much health and safety, and it's entwined with everything that we do, even with the work that Dewey's doing, and he's helping to design one of our primary compounds to the east of Bicester. Health and safety is very much at the forefront of that, ensuring that we have segregation between plant and people. We have that ability for the workforce to transition from the car parks to their place of work, and from that, moving from that compound to the point that they're working at. So whilst the specific qualifications don't necessarily come in abundance, there was a huge focus on health and safety, and it's one of our core pillars that we work to. Where we then sort of move on to the other qualifications, again, Dewey is absolutely right. The logistics it's about having that experience and understanding about how you can operate in a high tempo environment. And it's a phrase which Phil and I worked together previously in Afghanistan, and my boss at the time used using tempo as his continual theme to everything we did. And we are working in a very high tempo environment. And so everything that we can bring to the table in terms of being ex-forces is invaluable. To give you an idea of that, we've got 5 logistic managers, and of those 5 logistic managers, 3 are ex-military, and the supporting staff below that are ex-military. I'm ex-military, my boss is ex-military, and we have other ex-military people within the team, because we understand the value that the military can bring. And when I say military, we also talk about other services as well. We've just brought in a new security manager. He's an ex-inspector from the police force. So there's a lot of parallels there that he's bringing in that jump over to the military. Could talk for hours on that, but I'm conscious that there are probably lots of other questions. So if anyone wants to speak to me afterwards, more than happy, and equally find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm more than happy to assist.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. A question for Phil. So as commanding officer, how do you feed all aspects of your previous military career in terms of kind of physical, mental development progression? Do you feel that industry does that? Do you top it up with self-learning? How do you kind of feel truly satisfied and content every day? Because obviously your military career is quite all-encompassing. It consumes every part of your life.
Tricky question to answer. think a bit was it's touched on before about progression, and I guess the different thing from the military is in the military you've got a clear pyramid. You know where you're heading. You know that, for example, if you've been a corporal for 5-6 years, you're starting to hit the sweet spot promotion. You know sergeant's next, and you know that there could be an opportunity. The training establishment, a platoon sergeant, etc. It is so transparent. It is unbelievable. And I found in industry, I think it's less clear. To be honest, what's understandable because it's a different beast. So I think it's shaking those shackles off a bit and turning around and saying that you probably own your career more. What I think is a holy freedom, really, to be honest, because I was starting to get a bit tired of the military, thinking I know where I'm going next, and you get to the stage and think, I'll be honest, I didn't like what it was looking like, to be honest. Working in headquarters army, manning a desk and a few spreadsheets and civil servants wasn't what I joined the military to do. Hence decided to leave for a few other reasons as well. But also I turn around and say with industry is you don't necessarily also look at your own company because you own it more. It's constantly is look at the horizon out there. Not limited to the UK, across the globe if you're looking to travel as well, and say, right, what big projects are coming up? Who do I know in there, etc. So it's not just looking at progression within your own company that you're employed in. It's look at progression outside, because I think that will be far more rewarding. To be honest, I don't know if I've really answered the question there. To be honest, I've been a bit like a politician as ever. But I think it is one of that. It is, and I think with your own development, you've got to look to develop yourself more. And this hasn't been disingenuous to any of the companies I've had the pleasure of working for to date. It is you've got to seize that opportunity and look to see how you can develop, and therefore go to your showing I'm a civilian now, line manager, and say, look, I think I need to be doing this course, etc. And how do I need to develop yourself? The military is easy on that, because generally there's a career path linked to promotion, is linked to courses, etc. So yeah, I think you become a lot more independent, if that makes sense, and you've got to take charge and control of it more.
Okay, and in terms of the our ex-military and our veterans that exist within industry, the ones that you've come across over the years, is there any advice that you would give to them? Do you think they should demonstrate and display typical military traits? Do you think you leave them at the door when you come into Civvy Street? Because I know sometimes through the transition they can feel a bit lost. They don't know who they quite are for a number of years.
You are what you are, I think, and if you try and change too much, you will create quite a false environment, and I don't think that would be a healthy place to be. I think a lot of traits that the military bring, the work ethic, a sort of Wilco approach, not being tied by a job description, a list of responsibilities on a job description. I don't remain tied by it. I never did in the military. When I was a squadron commander, my commanding officer came to me and said, right, this is what you need to do, Phil. I didn't pull out my job description and say, oh no, hang on a minute, it's not in there. So therefore I want to renegotiate my terms and conditions before I consider that, because that ain't going to happen. So I think that sort of military approach of not being tied by a job description, it may sound quite a simple one, but I think it's one that in my brief time out the forces, and those I've worked with about the forces, we haven't changed that sort of mentality. It's gone down really well, actually, across the community, the construction community. I think those as well who've had the fortune of being in the leadership role, so pretty much probably everyone on the call, whether it be leading the half section through to a regiment and more, is looking back and saying now is how much the military invest in your I say leadership training. I don't think you train leadership. I think you mentor and guide leadership. But that guidance and mentoring and courses all around leadership develops generally across the military community some very good leadership traits. To be honest, not across all. Definitely not. And it's those sort of traits that, if you're fortunate then to go out to the civilian world, is where you show genuine empathy to those that are working for you. You genuinely care about them, you value them, you inspire them, you have the two-way trust going between. It's the same as the military. Those people will bleed for you, and simple as that. So I would say that very much your leadership skills honed in the forces, to take them into the civilian environment, I think is a real force multiplier, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a very, very good point.
But it'd be interesting to see if those who had the dishonour or the I wouldn't say privilege of working for me echoed that, to be honest.
Well, we could ask. There might be some listening. Just to our listeners at the moment, if anybody has a question, then just please unmute or put your camera on. You're more than welcome to ask. I don't know if the chat's quite working for everybody.
Hi, I've got a question for Phil. It's Angus McGill here.
Hi, Angus.
Just a quick question, Phil. Is there a chance to transfer to trades once you're in the construction industry? So let's say you want to go to civil engineering for a start, and you've had enough of it. Can you transfer to a completely different trade and start again?
Apologies, I didn't get that. That was a bit broken. I'm sorry.
All right. So at the moment, I'm looking to go into groundwork, civil engineering, or physical work. But if I've had enough in that certain trade, is there a chance to transfer a completely different trade in construction, like you transfer regiments in the army?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I really don't. I think that the military is probably more constraining on that sort of way, to be honest. And yeah, I really don't see that being an issue, to be honest. And if it's something you want to do and you're willing to throw yourself into and back yourself and do any additional sort of training in that side, I think that the world's your oyster, to be honest. But I apologise. I'm always quite a positive bloke. I don't see many hurdles.
Do you want to add to that, Phil? Just speaking from an EKFB perspective, it definitely is there opportunities. You need to remember that when you're brought into a business, Phil, with Balfour Beatty and with 4 JVs, the projects that we're working on at the moment are not the only projects that business is focused. And to tie back into what Dewey said about promotion opportunities, whilst there may be a logistic manager opportunity open up in Lafarge for Dewey, for Kia, it may not be on the HS2 project. It may be on another project somewhere else in the country or indeed in the world. But certainly from my perspective, we've got people who are operating within the EKFB offices in Birmingham at the moment who are changing trades. We've got people who are transferring over from one department to another, going either through using the skill sets they've got already, or embarking at the very first step and going onto university courses and graduate schemes. We've got graduates who are as young as in their 20, 21, but equally we've got graduates who are in their mid to late 30s. And the same with apprentices as well. I think our oldest apprentice is 42, and he's doing something brand new. So there's, as Phil says, the military are very constrained, but once you step away from that, the world is your oyster. When I joined EKFB, I was brought in as a logistic manager to focus solely on the area that Dewey's looking at. And now my remit has expanded and I look holistically across the trace, and I cover a wide range of aspects. So once even the role that you agree to start on or start with when you join a business doesn't mean that will be your role for the duration. I've been with EKFB now for 20 months, I think, and how my role has evolved, you won't recognise it from where I was on day one. So yes, there are more opportunities.
Just one on that is, I think it's wise sage words from Mr. Bedford. First time I've heard that. Sorry, mate. Is seek opportunity yourself. If you're in a role, don't wait for someone to say, right, how can you expand it? How can you change it? It is, look yourself and see where you can create that opportunity. Look critically on the organisation or that part function you're looking at in the organisation. And if you see a way of changing it, a way of doing it, try and do it. Or pass it through your, I was going to say chain of command there. It's really hard to get out of the system. But pass it through, sell it to be honest. Because I think that's sort of forward thinking as well. And you know, the only difference though I'd say on this is one that I think we'll all continue to grapple with for a period of time as we transition is that commercial aspect. Because obviously when we were dealing with bombs and bullets in Iraq and Afghanistan, we weren't too concerned about cost. However, we're in an environment now where cost is king to a certain degree, or commercial is king. So I'd say the only difference there being is when we're looking at creating that opportunity, evolving or changing, where you're working, etc., is consider the commercial and cost implications, because if you don't, it'll be dead in the water before you start. But yeah, it's definitely look for that opportunity yourself.
That's really good advice. Really good advice. Again, anybody has any questions, just please feel free to step forward. In the meantime, is Dewey there? It was another question for Dewey. In terms of a kind of mentor, Dewey, do you have one, and the importance of one? Has the kind of mentoring relationship helped you in any way through your transition?
Definitely, especially like I said, with me going down the wrong sort of avenue in my first transition, and then going through the build force thing, being able to talk to someone within the industry is it's invaluable. I know Phil said earlier where you can, if your mates are within the construction industry, go speak to them. Or my mates bomb bursted off to do maritime security and CP in places. So I thought, I found it very hard to connect with people within the construction industry, and that's where Buildforce sort of breached that gap massively for me to speak to someone. Like just a guy from Wilson James that I spoke to, very nice guy. Met after work quickly for a drink, and what they were doing didn't quite sound 100% what I wanted to be doing within the construction industry. So just being able to talk to him, to say, well, this is what we're doing, this is the type of project that we're doing. If this is what you're interested in, brilliant. But have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? And just every conversation that I had with different people from the industry just broadened my horizons every time. And so, but as for a mentor as such, like Phil just said earlier as well, just try and see where you need to go, see, as bad as it sounds, but see whose job you want and where do you want to go and what do you want within that industry and business that you're working at the moment, and latch on to someone who's good at their job, same as in the military. If you hang around with the people who's good at what they're doing, you're gonna be not bad yourself.
That's really, really good advice. Any final questions from the audience listening?
Yeah, I've got one, if I could. It's for Dewey, if you don't mind. So you say, Dewey, you're an assistant logistics manager. Is that just is that the path that you just saw, the natural path that you wanted to take, or was that the only opportunity presenting at the time? Does that make sense, rather than looking for a logistics manager job?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. At the time, it didn't. I was, to be honest with you, I sort of wanted out of the industry what I was doing, and I wanted into the construction industry. I wanted the idea of HS2 to start on that project, because preferably I want a job for the next 20 years. I don't want to be stressing or what I'm going to do in the next year or two. So this project ticked a lot of boxes for me. Regarding starting at a assistant sort of role, like I said in my presentation, but double-edged sword. Don't undersell yourself, but no point in me walking in the guns blazing and I can't really do the job, and I'm only going to lose it within a few months and black mark myself. So luckily I got this job as an assistant manager, the skill level on it, or the amount of work involved with it is a lot. I didn't sort of underestimated how much work it's going to be. So working up bit by bit, I think in the long term would suit me far better than going into a role where my skill level and my background didn't quite suit. So I think it's up to yourself really, and also what's available and what you can get. You know, how long I'm going to be there. It's up to me really.
Hi, Andrew, can I just add to that
Yeah,
from Drew's perspective? I've been responsible for hiring a number of people within the operational support team to deliver logistics, and we have a number of people that get stuck on job titles. Now, it needs to be put into perspective as to what you're doing. I had an individual apply for a job who was a logistic manager, and he didn't want to. He felt that taking a role as an assistant logistic manager would be a step backwards. However, when you looked at his role, he was a logistic manager in a yard which was 20 meters by 20 meters, and he looked after 3 people. Dewey, as an assistant logistic manager, is working on a £3 billion project and is responsible for, or indirectly responsible for, up to 30 people working for him, as well as having integral input into the design and the operation of his part of the route. So from that, just whilst the job titles can be misleading, certainly if you are being very focused on what that is, make sure you do your research and understand what that job is, because sometimes taking a job which what can be perceived as having a lower job title doesn't necessarily transpire that way, and it can be something that's so much more.
That's a good point. Phil, anything to add on that from experience?
Yeah, I agree with all said, and it's about exactly what Paul said, is what the job is, what the project, and that side. Because let's be a bit cutthroat now, I suppose, if that's the right terminology. This is about building your CV up as well, and widening your employability as you may be looking at other opportunities. So, you know, as exactly as Paul said, you know, you could be an assistant logistic manager on as Paul said there, the HS2 £3 billion project, or you could be a logistic manager on a £1 million project. For me, the former builds your CV up better, to be honest. So don't be tied up with a title. The title means nothing really. One-man manager, I've learned in the civilian world, is one-man manager, one ladies manager, it is a director. Do you know what I mean? And vice versa. So I really would pay. The thing is looking what the responsibility is, and that side of life is absolutely key. And to be pretty blunt as well, is then obviously look at the pay offer. Perhaps I should have said that, but I think, you know, let's not all sort of kid ourselves, you know, because that's what it's been about as well. To be honest, apologies for my bluntness there.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's welcomed. We've had one other question from Paul Virgo. I don't know if Caroline's there to answer, but what's the relationship between Buildforce and the all-important hiring managers? Caroline, do you want to talk through just the connection and the relationship that you have, and just what the kind of part that Buildforce plays?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I put my hair up. I'm so hot. Every room in my house is boiling. Yeah, so how Buildforce works is when you register with us, following your induction with one of our industry leads who goes through your skill sets and maps out a bespoke career plan for you, we then have a clearer picture of where you want to go and where you sit best in industry. So following that, we can then match you to an industry mentor who will then further connect you within their organisation. Or if you're just wanting connections, we'll connect you at the right level according to skill set, you know, your seniority and your location. And Phil himself is a mentor. Paul, who you've had on the call, is a mentor. Dewey is a mentor. And much as we do deal with direct job descriptions, I would say most of our employment has been secured by the best connections. Does that answer it?
It does. Thank you, Caroline. Okay, unless there's any other questions, we'll wrap up. on behalf of Dewey.
Sorry, Andrew.
That's very welcome.
Sorry, can I just add a further point? It's something which is quite sort of close to my my experiences with being a hiring manager at the moment. It's a piece of advice I'd like to sort of pass on to people. And again, take it or leave it. It's just the world according to Paul Bedford. I review a lot of CVs, and there will be times where you have to you'll be looking to apply for jobs and you won't have that connection, but decisions are made very quickly on the quality of your CV. The last time I had to do a bulk checking of CVs, I had 86 CVs and I had just under an hour to go through them. So each CV got less than a minute of my time. And some of those CVs, I'd made a decision within 10, 15 seconds just by looking at it. And others, I spent more time on it. And that wasn't anything more than that initial sales pitch. So going back to what Dewey said before, it really is up to you to sell yourselves. Nobody else is going to sell you for you. You need to be doing that yourselves. And then on that as well, and I'm going to take one of the two best bits of advice I received from Resettlement, and both of them actually came from Phil Herbert. One was to register with Billforce, which led me to where I am now, and the other one was to not stovepipe myself, because I was very much, as an ex-Royal Logistic Corps officer, looking at jobs in logistics, in mainstream logistics. The amount of CVs that I get with covering notes or with points in it to say that they want to be a project manager, every CV, more than every other CV has that on there. And whether or not you are the cleaner and you're mopping up a flooded kitchen, or whether or not you are delivering a £3 billion project, you are a project manager. So try and steer clear of that term, because I'm a project manager, Phil's a project manager, Angela is, Dewey is, but it doesn't necessarily correspond to your job title. The project managers that I deal with are very experienced, construction-focused people who are at the top of their game delivering infrastructure across the HS2 network. And so if you start looking for project manager roles, you'll find that it'd be very difficult to break in. You need to focus on those skills that you have, those skills that you potentially take for granted. The fact that you have been on those NCO cadres and you've got that ability to lead and command and make decisions. There's a lot of indecision in construction, and people that come to the table who are not afraid to make those decisions are vital. And it's one of those key skills that I recognise in the military people when I'm looking to employ people. So with that, I got my role not by saying that I was a project manager. Through Billforce, it was the fact that I had experience in logistics, I had leadership experience being a leader, commanding, and through managing. And it was those skills that were recognised that helped me get to where I am today. And it's why when I started working with Dewey and I helped mentor him, when I started mentoring Dewey, I had no intention of giving him a job. That was not because I disliked him or anything like that. So it was just at the time there were no opportunities. But and I'm sure Dewey will tell you the CV that he's got now compared to the one that he had initially, we were able to extract all those skills from him and be able to really do that deep dive to understand what they are doing. And again, with that, many people talk about their job role and whether or not you are a logistician and you are responsible for delivering X amount of stores. What makes you different to that person next to you? It's everyone knows what a logistician is. Well, that's probably a bad term. Everybody knows what a manager is, but what makes you better than that manager that is also applying for that job? What have you done that's above and beyond? What are those achievements that you've received? Because that is what will draw you to the forefront. Certainly when I'm looking through CVs, I don't want to look at your job specs from your last 3 or 4 jobs. I want to know what made you better than the next person I'm about to look at. Soapbox off and I rant over, but I wanted to relay that message just to help to give you all the opportunity to get the very best chance of securing something once you finish your military careers.
And it's that first-hand help and advice that's so incredibly important, and it's what makes Billforce churn, and it's what's made us grow and develop. So in terms of a very quick summary on behalf of our speakers, Dewey's advice was recognise your skill set and things that you can do. So adaptability and timekeeping, that led to his search. Again, his role was a lot about liaising. It was interesting, it was varied. He said it was a good job and he smiled, so I think he genuinely meant that. Importance of work experience. Don't be afraid to try something new. Adapt your CV, your expectations. Know your work environment in terms of what will work for you. And again, recruitment was a key piece, whether it's LinkedIn or Buildforce. On behalf of Phil, again, that selfless commitment needs to shift to self-focus. Listen to your instinct, really pursue opportunities, use your resettlement and termination leave as best you can. He said, rip up the rule book, focus on a sector, not a job. And the how around that is networking. Use LinkedIn, connect to those hiring managers. He did say that the help is at hand, Buildforce both empathetic and respectful. Never be fazed by what you don't know. Be confident in what you do. And Paul Bedford kind of kindly added, sell yourself, know the importance around your CV, but what makes you different and better than anyone else. Okay, I'd like to thank our speakers today. A kind of warm, heartfelt thank you. I thought today's session was brilliant. So I hope our listeners who've joined us enjoy it. And again, it'll be posted out on social media to the hundreds and thousands more that will pick it up. So thank you again. I'll pass back over to Caroline, if she's there, just to wrap up.
I am. I just echo Angela's thanks. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dewey. Thanks, Phil. Dewey, I am so sorry about the presentation. Yeah, I owe you one there. Sorry. But just to say, our next one coming up, we are doing these every fortnight. So our next one coming up is QS in 2 weeks' time. I will push out on social media. So please do get in touch. For those of you that are attending today and haven't registered with Buildforce and are interested to know more about the sector, even if you just want to have a chat, then please just give me a call, drop me an email, connect me on LinkedIn, however you want to get me. I'm here and we're here to support you. So enjoy the sun. I hope lockdown's not too dreadful, and speak to you all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.